Welcome to lesson 3 of the Lead Guitar Quick Start series. In this lesson, we're going to go over your first scale, the major scale. And this one is really important because the major scale is pretty much the foundation of all the other scales and chords that you're going to learn as a guitarist. So what we're going to do is work on just the basic mechanics and the memorization of this scale shape. But before we actually jump into learning the shape, you need to learn how to read a scale diagram. And if you've learned how to read chord diagrams, it's not a whole lot different. On a scale diagram, you're going to see 6 vertical lines that represent the strings of the guitar. The one to the far left represents the low E string. The one to the far right represents the high E string. And the horizontal lines on the scale diagram are going to represent the frets of the guitar. When you look at a scale diagram, you're going to see a lot of dots on it. Now, those dots are either going to be filled in or not filled in. The filled in dots represent the root notes of that particular scale that you're looking at. So, for example, we're going to be learning a G major scale here. The filled in or black dots that you're going to see are the root notes of that G major scale, which means those are going to be all G notes. The rest of the circles, the non-filled in notes, are just the rest of the notes in that scale. Now, in those circles, you're going to see numbers, either 1, 2, 3, or 4. Those numbers just represent which fingers you should be playing those particular notes with. For all the scales that we're going to be learning in the Lead Guitar Quick Start series, we're going to be using something called the designated finger concept. I mentioned that in the first lesson, and that just says that you're going to have one finger that's designated for each fret in that particular scale. So for this G major scale, if there are any notes that occur on the 2nd fret, you're going to play those notes with your 1st finger. Any notes that occur on the 3rd fret, you're going to play with your 2nd finger. Any notes that occur on any of the strings on the 4th fret, you're going to play with your 3rd finger. And your pinky is going to cover any notes that happen on the 5th fret. That's going to become a lot clearer to you once we start learning the scale shape. The major scale is a 7-note scale, and if you look at the scale diagram for this shape we're going to be learning, you're going to say, Nate, there are a lot more than 7 notes on there, and you're right. The thing is, once you play the first 7 notes of that scale, you're just going to repeat those notes again 1 octave higher. So let's jump into this scale. Remember all the tips I've given you about small efficient motions with your picking, staying relaxed, finger placement right behind the frets, coming right down on the tips of your fingers, all of those things. So let's get into this scale shape. Our first note is going to be the lowest note of the scale, and that's going to be the G root note right here on the 3rd fret of the low E string. And you're going to play that with your middle finger, your 2nd finger. Second note of the scale, you're going to get with your pinky on the 5th fret. And I'm going to be using all downstrokes just to keep things simple for right now. So those are the first 2 notes of your scale. Now go over to the next string, and your 1st finger is going to come back to the 2nd fret. 2nd finger, 3rd fret. Pinky finger, 4th finger on the 5th fret. So those are the 3 notes on that string. So do you see how the designated finger concept is kind of kicking in? The notes that occurred on both strings, both the low E and the A strings on the 3rd fret, I was getting with my middle finger. The note that occurred on the 2nd fret, I was getting with my index finger there. 3rd finger was getting the note on the 4th fret, and my pinky was getting both notes on the low E and the A for the 5th fret. So both of those strings together, just take it a little bit at a time. Work on just those 2 strings. And like I did just there, make sure to go up and come back down too. Let's add in the notes on the next string, on the D string. Those notes are going to be 1st finger, 2nd fret, 4th fret with your 3rd finger, and your pinky is going to grab the 5th fret. And that brings us up to an octave G note. So we've played 7 notes and then back up to another G. So work on just those notes, get them under your fingers. Then add them into the rest of the scale. So that's our first octave of that scale. 7 notes, right? And then to the octave, another G note right there. Now we're just going to repeat that major scale. And to do that, we need to learn the notes on the G string, which is something really cool right here. It's the same exact pattern that you had on the last string. You're going to have your first finger, second fret, third finger, fourth fret, pinky finger, fifth fret. And those are the notes on that string. And looking for repeating patterns like this is a trick to memorizing scale shapes faster. So if I know that my D string and my G string have the exact same patterns on them, that can make memorizing this G major scale a little bit easier. So incorporate that with the rest of the scale and just work on that one chunk. Once you have that down, you can add the notes on the B string. And on the B string, there are only 2 notes for this scale shape. Middle finger is going to grab the 3rd fret. Pinky is going to grab the 5th fret. Those are the only 2 notes on that string, so get those into your finger. Once you get those memorized and down, just add it in to the rest of the scale. So you're almost there. You don't have to learn this all in the course of this video. Take some time, you know, a couple days, a week, a month, or whatever, to get this scale shape down. Now, the notes on the last string, the high E string, are the 2nd fret with your 1st finger, 3rd fret, your 2nd finger, and your 4th finger is going to grab the 5th fret. So you got 3 notes on this string. So. Once you get it memorized, just work on going up and down the scale, making sure that you have it memorized and it's under your fingers really well. So right now, just focus on memorizing this scale shape and getting it down. Another thing that I want you to realize is this scale shape is movable too. So if I had this G major scale that we just played, and I moved it to where the root notes were on a different note. So if I moved my starting point up 2 frets to an A note, now I'll be playing an A major scale using the exact same shape, and now the name of the scale changes to an A major scale. It's also important to start memorizing where the root notes of the scale shape are. So we know our lowest root note is here with our middle finger, right? If you look at the scale diagram, we're going to see another root note here on the 5th fret of the D string, and another root note here on the 3rd fret of the high E string. I've made a jam track for you to help you work on this major scale. And like I said earlier, it's really important that you apply everything that you're going to be working on here to some real music. So pull up that major scale jam track. And what you want to do is just start off by getting the scale shape down, kind of using it as a metronome. After you do that, you're going to kind of want to emphasize the root notes of the scale. And by emphasize the root notes, all I mean is start and end, or maybe even pause on the root notes. After that, once you have the scale shape down and you know where the root notes are, just try making up your own licks. Start to improvise and just make stuff up out of thin air with this scale shape. Here's a basic example of how you can start to develop this skill with this jam track. So go as crazy as you want to with that, memorize the scale shape, memorize where the root notes are, and then just start making stuff up on your own. Thanks for going through this lesson with me. Don't forget to apply everything you've learned to real music, in this case, the jam track I've supplied for you. And you know, you may feel silly at first or like you're not very good, but that's okay. The important part is that you start to apply, like I said, everything you learned to real music, and you enjoy the process of making up patterns and learning this new scale shape. In the next lesson, we're going to learn a new scale that you can use over this same jam track that you used in this lesson. It's going to be the major pentatonic scale, so get ready for that. If you have any questions about the major scale or the shape, you can leave them here in the comments and I'll answer you there. Or you can just email me, Nate@guitarsystem.com. See you in the next lesson.